Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about planning for the new year. We had their body and mind, but it's very important that we actually consider the whole person. So it'll be body, mind, and soul. Thank you, Dr. Abiri. I think I'll be talking to you first, and I'll say thank you to Dr. Sodipo for also being on the program. But Dr. Abiri, if we can talk to you first about the mind and then the body. We'll talk about the mind and the soul, and before we go to Dr. Sodipo and talk about the body. So can you just talk us through? We've started 2025. This is like the first week we're talking about it. And we want to sort of create good habits and really create something that will be for the long term, not the short term. Can you share with us your thoughts on how we can do this?
All right, so thank you very much. So usually when a new year starts, there's this pressure, there's this tension, and of course a desire to say you want to do new things, largely because, well, it's a new year, and because there's also the pressure of seeing everyone else also trying to fall in line. I recall the last few days of 2024, and a couple of patients that I saw, kept saying to me, "Oh, I'm writing down my goals, I'm writing down my vision, I'm writing down and I just looked at them like, for me, it's possibly just another day. It's crossing over. Yes, it's significant to know the date. It's significant to look at what the difference is, but we also need to be careful as humans to be able to manage our expectations as regards ourselves and to see, how much pressure that we put on ourselves. We need to, of course, be true to our own selves, not just generally look at the fact that everyone else is trying to do something. And because I'm trying to catch on with the bandwagon effects, I want to be like everyone else. And so the first thing I would say about, being able to put in place measures or habits that would serve us long term is to be able to understand where we are, what our expectations of ourselves are, and of course, understand what the journeys for ourselves are as well. So individualize your plan, tailor make your own plans to your mind and to your soul. Don't do it because everyone else is doing it. Do it because you have a conviction to do it. Again, if it's not because everyone else is doing it and it's something that serves your mind and your soul, you're more likely to see it have a lasting effect. Again, when
Mm.
you always remember your why or what it is that is motivating you to do something, it's also more likely to last longer as against I'm doing it just because someone else is doing it, and after a while the fire fades out. So for me, that's a good place to
That's
start.
that's a good place to start. So remember your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? It's not a point matter of just, oh, everybody is setting goals and we're going to rush and set goals. We're talking about thinking, being mindful, as they say, thinking deeply about what it is you're doing and making sure it reflects in your life long term. It's not just on the spur of the moment. So remember your why. Remember your why. I think that is so key, so important. So, Dr. Sholipo, we have you here. Dr. Sholipo, so can you talk to us now about the body? With in the same sense that we're talking about being mindful about the soul, being mindful about the mind. How can we be mindful with our bodies?
So thank you, and yeah, it's great to be in the new year. And I mean, I agree totally with the comments that have been made about the fact that once we have a new year, everybody tries to wrap their heads around, oh, my new year resolutions and how that's going to play into their health going into 2025 and of course beyond. But so for the body, I think it's still the same thing. We need to be very, very direct and also very intentional about what we want to do in terms of health. But again, don't put too much pressure so that we don't just fall off the rails once there's a little glitch in some of the resolutions that have been set that we've set for ourselves. So, I mean, one of the things I try to tell patients too is we're all at different stages of making decisions for our health. I don't want to, take too much of our time, but we have things like people are contemplating about some of the changes they want to make. Some people have gotten to the stage of action. They've now made up their plans that, oh, this is what I want to do for 2025. And then some people have even started from 2024 and they're trying to build on, and ensure that it becomes part of what they do, maybe going on 6 months, 5 years. So I think for 2025, we need to be direct and ensure that we go for specifics that are tailored towards that individual. So a lot of people go for screening when it becomes the new year. They want to go for health screenings, just go into maybe a laboratory or see a physician or another healthcare worker and say, okay, please, I've done all these tests, I want to do all these tests, but I think it goes beyond that. So what we're preaching now is, first and foremost, we have to ensure that whatever type of screening we're going to be planning to do has to be directed to that individual. We're not all the same. We have different genetics, we have different lifestyles, we have different comorbid conditions that people are treating. So it has to be directed towards that. And of course, last but not the least, which is what we're now preaching, even when we try to do some of these screenings, what next? Because I think that's the issue. I was still talking to one of my patients, and every year they do tests and they have a whole bunch of tests, thousands of pages or on their phones. And I say, okay, have you now come up with what we call a prevention prescription? So I think that's 2025 goal for me. When you're coming in and you've now come into 2025 and you've come up with, okay, these are my plans. How do you now come up with a prescription to ensure that you're able to keep up to those plans? And of course, be liberal with themselves that if, for example, for a reason or another, there's just a little glitch, one doesn't just go off the rails and say, oh, I said I'm not going to take cake, in January, and the person takes a little bit of cake and now says, oh, since I've taken cake, I'm going to eat 10 cakes since I've already lost that. No, that's not the way to look at it. So I think the best thing is, as was mentioned by Abiri, we just need to work together and ensure that we take it step by step as we go into 2025.
Okay. So talking about this health thing, and I really liked what you said about the screening, because people just do a general screen. But a person who has hypertension needs to have a more focused, screening around the cardiac, or somebody who's got diabetes needs to have a more focused screening around complications. So I think it's so important that people recognize not just what they have, but also sometimes what's in the family. Yeah. So that if there's family history of diabetes or there's family history of hypertension, we need to be looking. We need to be checking our kidneys. We need to be checking some of those things. And I think I really like this conversation because I think it's helping people to know and sort of be more intentional about what it is they're doing. And we talked about mindfulness. We're now talking about intentionality. Dr. Abiri, do you want to jump in here just for a few minutes that we have left to this half?
Well, so yes, intentionality. So for me, clarity, consciousness, and intentionality. We must be clear as to what exactly we're trying to achieve. We must be conscious. And so it's not just because someone asks you to go for a screen or someone thinks that it's this decade of your life and you should get this. What do you also think about it? Are you involved in your own healthcare plan, or are you just a passive observer with your own healthcare plan as well? And of course, there has to be the deliberatedness to ensure that beyond getting the results that I get, what lifestyle modifications and improvements am I going to be putting in going ahead? So all of this, are very important with the conversation as to owning your health, especially when you're looking at putting in healthy habits in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sodipo. Should we take things a bit further in terms of what are the things that you want people to be intentional about this year in terms of how do they form the kind of habits that will take them for the long term and helping them manage their body and really, keep the focus on wellness and prevent a lot of, ill health for themselves in the future?
Yeah, so I think in 2025, we need to understand and realize the power of lifestyle and the fact that there can be a lot of good that can come from adopting healthy lifestyle practices. We've talked about screening. So one of the things that come out of screening is that it allows for appropriate prescriptions for appropriate lifestyle measures that have to be taken by individuals as they move forward. So after seeing a practitioner, getting a focus screening, looking at things like chronic medical diseases, looking at things like cancers, looking out for mental health. I mean, Dr. Abiri is going to be talking a lot about that. We have a lot of stress. After all that has been sorted out, the next part is what do I do next? And what needs to be done next is adopting healthy lifestyle practices and doing it in a phased response so that if there is a setback, it doesn't mean that everything that has been achieved goes out the mirror. So the first thing, of course, we need to lose weight. So generally, I know people talk about weight and how do I lose weight? And there's a lot of conversations about that, which we might not be able to discuss fully, even if we go into it. But one of the things I advise is, yes, we need to walk more and do that in a way that is intentional, not just on going to the gym, but make it part of the lifestyle. When you don't need to enter a vehicle, just take a stroll. Try and ensure that at least there are 5,000 steps a day and build towards 10,000, 15, 20,000 steps a day. Those little measures will help with weight, reducing the amount of food that is eaten and even the type of food, because a lot of times we take all this high calorie food. I mean, I was somewhere and I saw that almost everybody was on an energy drink. And, some of these things are becoming cheaper. People feel tired. Instead of taking some rest, what they do is grab an energy drink, take it in and taking in so many calories. So we need to reduce the amount of food that people are eating and at the right time. And the right time ensures that people take it at the time when they are having their maximal, outbursts. So, for example, that's why most times we advise during the day and not at night, because when people take food at night, I mean, within a couple of hours, they're going to sleep. Of course, healthy sleeping is very, very important. There's what we call sleep hygiene, trying to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep, getting off the phone at night, because that's when a lot of people spend 2, 3 hours, 4 hours speaking to people abroad. And that prevents them from sleeping, drives up their blood pressure. So we need to look at our sleep hygiene, ensure we don't take fizzy drinks at night as part of the measure. So we need to cut out other lifestyle habits. I know sometimes clients don't like hearing about it. One of them is, taking traditional medications because we've seen that that's causing a lot of kidney-related problems, and it's something that we need to reduce. Of course, the need for alcohol has to be cut off. A lot of people use it as a stress coping mechanism. They're tired, they're under stress, they just take alcohol. And there's always the argument that probably alcohol has been proven to be a bit useful in certain doses. But I think generally we are seeing that alcohol is quite dangerous. But again, what we can do as a common ground is, even if people can't cut it out totally at once, they can gradually try to reduce the amounts that they are taking. And of course, have conversations with their healthcare practitioners and know, that in some people, it's not even safe at all. Even take, for example, somebody has maybe hepatitis B, and the person is taking alcohol and says, oh, they said a little quantity, it could actually predispose that person to a lot of problems. And last but not the least, smoking. So smoking has been seen not to have any benefits, but I think the new trend that is coming up, which we need to really get a handle of, is a lot of people feel they're not smoking cigarettes, they are smoking marijuana, and they feel that, oh, marijuana is not as dangerous as cigarettes, so I'm not doing anything bad apart from probably on the legal aspect. But that is not true. The recent studies from the World Health Organization shows that marijuana also has a lot of complications and, just like other substances. So I think we need to adopt some of these lifestyle measures. But again, gradually, steadily, give some leeway, even if they don't do well, and, just keep at it to ensure that
Thank you so much. I think that's really important. And I think that sort of wraps up the body in a nutshell. So let me turn to you, Dr. Abiri, and say, tell us about the mind and the soul. Give us some detail about what you want us to be doing there.
Okay. So I think that one of the most important things for the mind and the soul, especially as they are both, intertwined and sometimes difficult to separate, is the fact that we must always remember that, well, the soul and the mind are made up of an individual's feelings, desires, affections, and it's also the seat of thinking, reasoning, and experiencing the world. One of the most important things I think is important when we are trying to set up healthy habits to keep our mental health and well-being in check is that motivation is often something that people look outside for. So people are often, waiting for motivation to jump on them, for them to see something that, either motivates them through someone's pep talk or someone's motivational speech. However, also look out for, signs around them. But we must instead realize that we need to motivate ourselves. There's nothing as powerful as intrinsic motivation, doing it for yourself.
Motivation comes from within. Yeah.
Yes, it comes from within, intrinsic, doing it for yourself and understanding why you need to do it and why you need to, keep at it. Again, of course, it's very important to remember that just because you didn't start on January 1st does not mean that it cannot work. And just because you're not joining the bandwagon does not mean, oh, everybody's doing it and I should do it. It does not mean that, you're not doing something that is valid. Of course, we spoke to this earlier on as well, that if the new resolution or the plans or the goals or the health habits that you're looking at appear not to be working perfectly well, then it means that you're wasting your time. Definitely not. Like many things in life, the beautiful things will take time, energy, and dedication to bring to reality. And so for the mind, what should people be doing? People should, of course, for the mind and soul, should exercise. Exercise is good for, the mind, is also good for the body. But more importantly, people should practice mindfulness. So in psychology, we usually say that what physical exercise is to the body, mindfulness is to the mind. And so we must pay attention to the things around us. We must, pause and experience the moments, not just allow things to go past us. We must be in the moment. We must not judge the moments. That's mindfulness. And you can practice mindfulness not just with exercise or meditation. Even things as seemingly little as taking a walk, paying attention to things that you ordinarily would not pay attention to, or listening to music mindfully, or even eating mindfully. Then, of course, we can meditate. And meditation, either on a verse, on a song, or on a piece of word that you think is meaningful to you, can also help you improve your mood, your memory, attention, and sleep. It's important to declutter. And as I say this, I smile because I also know that my my space and even my mind needs a lot of decluttering. Decluttering will help you, let go of things that you probably have held, you're holding on to that you should actually let go. We can always do with, a lot of clean space around us. And then, of course, I also encourage that we practice gratitude. Gratitude changes how we see the world. We may not be where we want to be just yet, but we're clearly not where we're coming from. And so, of course, gratitude changes and gives us a newer lens on how we can view the world. It's extremely important in this time and age, especially with all the difficulties and the challenges and obstacles that people face. There's a lot of negativity. And so people are thinking negatively, they're speaking negatively, they're behaving negatively. And so it's important to avoid negativity. We should limit the amount of time we spend consuming negative news. And instead, I always like to say this, that we must spend time around people, places, and processes that bring out the best in us. And so very importantly, we must also not forget human connectedness and spend time with friends, spend time with people, cultivate strong, positive relationships as well. I always say that vitamin R is very important. While sleep is important, rest is also particularly important. And so when we rest our bodies, we rest our minds, we rest our senses, we're likely to see our bodies, become rejuvenated, revitalized, and able to do more as well. There's nothing like having a healthy mind. There's nothing like having, mental health to take on the stress, because there will always be stress. Stress is not bad. It's exposure to chronic stress that can be debilitating and distressing. But the earlier we realize that and also understand that when we are mentally well, it means that we would be able to have a good quality of life, enjoy ourselves, enjoy our relationships, enjoy the work that we do or whatever venture that we find ourselves doing. And of course, we're also able to contribute to the environment that we live in as well.
Thank you. I think one thing, though, I wanted to talk about that was that sort of came to my mind when you were speaking is forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big, big thing. And I'm not just talking about forgiving others, which is very important, but also forgiving yourself. I think there's a lot that we do. Oh, wow, we don't have much time left. The program is almost over, but I just want to put out there forgiveness and ask for just a few last words for our listeners. Dr. Abiri.
All right, so a few last words. This 2025, if you haven't done anything for yourself ever, please show yourself kindness. Usually when we talk about kindness, just like forgiveness, we talk about gifting kindness to others, but you are also deserving of kindness. So be kind to yourself with your thoughts, be kind to yourself with your talk, your self-talk, be kind to yourself with your behaviors, the people you spend your time around, and of course, be kind to yourself with your touch as well. So every now and then, put your left hand over your right shoulder, your right hand over your left shoulder. And if there's no one to give you a warm hug, please do so by yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sodipo, your last words, please.
For me, my last words are, I'm just going to run with what Dr. Abiri has said and, talk about self-care, which is something that we should all just take into 2025. And of course, just try and have healthy lifestyle habits and have a good interaction with our healthcare providers and gradually just realize that it's a long-term thing. It's not something that we should just make resolutions about and, blame ourselves when we don't meet those goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for new video updates.